Don't you look beautiful? Wasn't it? I mean, we talked to Mother Nature over the weekend and we said, listen, we're having the Women's United event on Tuesday. What day is today? Is today Tuesday? Okay, on Tuesday, and she said, of course, women are coming together, so we're going to make sure it's a beautiful evening. I'm going to take away the humidity and make sure there's no moisture coming from the sky. So, welcome. The first thing I want to say is thank you to Tamika and Kristen, of course, and all the United Way team for putting out such a wonderful, wonderful spread and to bring us together once again. So my name is Adrienne Parkman, and I do want to say once again, welcome to all of you beautiful, beautiful women. Isn't it more empowering to have women come together and socialize? Because we know, one, that, oh, there's a bug. We don't like bugs, but we know that when we come together, good things happen. So, of course, the woman that Cheryl is referring to is none other than Jaci Carroll. How many have heard of Jaci Carroll? When the idea came up to honor a woman of impact, as United Way of Greater Waterbury closes out its 80th year celebration, there was only one name that came to mind, and that is Jaci Carroll. Tonight is actually historical. So for all you history buffs out there, just know the original United Way Committee meeting was held on July 10th, 1942. So tonight, July 11th, 2023, and it literally marks the first day of our 81st year. So let's give the United Way a round of applause for sustainability. And it could not happen without all of you in our community. So tonight, it is our honor to not only pay tribute to Jaci Carroll, a towering figure in our history and community, but to announce a special fund in her honor. Jaci was born in St. Mary's Hospital in 1932, and she passed away in 2018 at St. Mary's Hospital, bringing her life full circle in the community she loved so dearly. She founded Jaci Carroll Staffing. How many of you heard of Jaci Carroll Staffing? Nobody heard of Jaci? Y'all know y'all heard of Jaci Carroll Staffing. That was your first job? Okay. She founded that in 1976 in a 500 square foot second floor space on Bank Street. Talk about being a visionary in 1976. How big is the staffing agency industry now? It's $1 billion industry plus. And to have someone right here in Waterbury, to have the vision to be able to start something that has such legs and that has such an impact for all those years, that alone is worth an applause. This venture that she started in 1976 gained immediate acceptance and by the local community, and it made her new business a big success, fueled by her mission to support and be a part of the community, as well as igniting the desire to providing employment opportunities for those in Greater Waterbury. Jaci was fond of saying, if you want to do business in this town, you need to be a member of the chamber and you need to donate to the United Way. So she was an early implementer and consistent with her support of our community. She's a longtime member of the chamber, and you'll hear this a lot when you hear the name Jaci Carroll. First. She was the first female chairman of the board for the chamber. She founded the chamber's Women's Forum, Business Forum in 1982, giving women a stronger voice in the business community. Over the years, her business successes and philanthropic endeavors touched the lives of thousands of residents in Waterbury, and of course, a very positive way. Jaci was the first woman to chair the United Way's campaign in 1984, when women leaders were not common, and women leaders not only did not have a seat at the table, they did not have a seat at the head of the table. So she was the first woman to make sure that was a reality. Under her leadership, the campaign raised nearly $2 million, a record amount at that time. And what did they tell you? You give a job to a woman, and what? It gets done. So since that time, several women have served as campaign chairs following in her footsteps. And we are so very proud of all the women who have stepped up in that role. And many of you are here this evening, and we thank you and we congratulate you because of your leadership, because of your stepping up and stepping into, millions have been raised to provide vital resources in our community. She was a member of the United Way's Leavenworth Society and was recognized with United Way's prestigious Frederick and Lucy Kellogg Award. She was truly a trailblazer of women, breaking glass ceilings everywhere and generously giving of her time to mentor other businesswomen so they could do the same. Her daughter, Kathy, shared that she was more than just a great business leader. She was a loving mother, a loving grandmother, and great-grandmother. And I will add, it's a benefit to the community to have her family who have inherited those traits and continue to live out her legacy. And that's the true testament to someone's life, if the legacy that you've established lives on. And we are so blessed to have the Carroll family, the Hanratty family, that legacy lives on in our community. She may have passed away 5 years ago this month, but her impact is still felt. And we at Women United are here to make sure that that impact continues to be felt and that this community never forgets the name Jaci Carroll. They never forget the history. They never forget what she did in her lifetime for so many in this community. Tonight, we announce a new addition to the United Way's endowment, the Jaci Carroll Fund, which will ensure her impact continues in perpetuity, supporting the community that meant so very much to her. And the one thing that struck me was not only, as I talked about, her philanthropic efforts, but also her efforts to mentor other women. So that's a true testament of a leader, not in what you do, but what you do to make sure those behind you are successful as well. And that was one of her core. So I am so honored to be here to talk about that. We've set a goal for $50,000 by next year's Summer Social, the 40th anniversary of Jaci's record-breaking campaign. Thanks to Jaci Carroll staffing and Kathy Hanratty combined, drum roll, who's got the drum roll? Okay, great. You had it ready? Oh, you got real drums too. Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't even know about that. Okay, we got real drums. So combined, Jaci Carroll staffing and Kathy Hanratty has given $10,000 to launch the Jaci Carroll Fund. We are so excited, so thankful, and of course, we are going to make this happen. If Jaci could raise nearly $2 million for the United Way, surely Women United can raise $50,000 over the next year. That's a drop in the bucket, right? Okay, I'm having some more hand claps. There we go. So if you'd like to contribute tonight, there's a convenient QR code, of course, because we are in 2023. You know, we have QR codes everywhere. Look at that right there. It makes it nice and convenient for you. It's on the poster. Just speak with Tamika or Kristen to learn more. I'd like to invite Kathy up, her daughter, her beautiful daughter, to share some thoughts on behalf of the family. And look at her looking so gorgeous in that pink and green. Walk it, girl. Yes, beautiful. Yes. Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Adrian. And thank you all for being here tonight for our mom. Mom, as Adrian said, was born at St. Mary's Hospital in 1932. And she passed away at St. Mary's Hospital. This week she entered, in fact, this day she entered hospice. So she lived her life, her dash, that little line between the day you're born and the day you die, that dash. She lived it with passion and purpose. And I don't need my glasses. The font is big enough. That's what happens at my age. My mom's mom, I want to tell you a little bit about the woman. Her mom was a radium girl. I'm sure you've all heard of radium girls. And her mom worked in a factory one summer in high school and unfortunately died of throat cancer when my mother was 14 years old. It was an unimaginable loss, and my mother was fortunate enough, believe it or not, fortunate she felt, to stay on the couch of her aunt and uncle and live there until she graduated high school. With no resources, no money, and no parents, of course, this is Jackie. She decides to go to Manhattan to find her fame and fortune with $32 in her pocket and a cousin who had an apartment in the city who had just graduated from college. She, within several months, talked her way into a sales position at a store on Fifth Avenue called Tailored Women, now known as Bergdorf Goodman. And I think, like for all of us, she talked and talked and talked and talked until Mr. Denton, the CEO, gave her a job. 2 years later, she was the hosiery buyer and worked with all of the famous celebrities. She told us stories about Ethel Merman, et cetera, and Shelley Berman, who would drink too much and pass out, et cetera. And my father's family owned the shoe department. And of course, the shoes and hosiery were all on the same floor, which is where they met and fell in love. And I like to say they fell in love over feet, and that's why my sisters and I are madly in love with shoes. Unfortunately, as things happen in life, she returned to Connecticut, where she had a network of family members as a single parent, and she persevered. It was not easy. We did not have a car. We did not have a television. We really didn't have anything, but we had Mom, and she was absolutely amazing. As the years went on, family meant everything to her because she didn't have a family. She was first and foremost Jackie the woman. You're right, Adrian. She was a mom, a grandma, a great-grandma, an aunt, a cousin, a friend. She was a hostess. Invitations to her Italian-style Christmas Eve were highly sought after. She was a brilliant cook, a baker, a homemaker, a craft maker. There was almost nothing my mom couldn't do except drive, okay? She was really the worst driver probably in the entire East Coast. My family will tell you that is true. And on a regular basis, we got calls about her rear-ending people or her driving her car through the garage door. That's another story for another night. But she could do everything else except drive. When trying to explain the concept of Grandma Jackie passing to her great-grandson Cameron, whose mom is here tonight, who was 7 years old, he said, "I remember Grandma Jackie. You know, she was kind of bossy." Well, someday when Cameron's older, I'm going to explain to him something that we women know. It was not easy for women, let alone in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, to have their voices heard back then. She had to be bossy. She had to speak louder than everybody. And she had to be heard. The conscious and unconscious bias against women in the workplace, particularly in leadership, was palpable back then, I sure remember. But she never, ever complained. She never called her card the woman card. You know what she did? She just worked harder than everybody else. And she would never let the guys see her sweat, which is what I loved about her. One of the many things I loved about her. Eventually, with all of that hard work, she earned her stripes. And one of the most exciting days of her life was the day that she was called to have lunch at the now defunct, unfortunately, Waterbury Club, where women were just allowed to be members that year. She was allowed to have lunch with Harold Lever and Vin Largay, who were, as she called them, the powers that be in town back then. And she was asked if she would chair the United Way campaign that year, which was the plum not-for-profit position to have. And then she said, "I think I've made it." And they said, it's like only Harold Lever, the handful of you that knew Harold Lever, he'd say, "You know, Jackie, the boys got together last night and we decided to give it to a girl." But he meant well. He just meant, that was Harold, you know, he was the same guy that slapped the EEOC officer on the backside when she came to visit. He was just Harold, cigar-smoking Harold, who was generous to a fault. And he meant that as a compliment. They decided it was time to put a woman at the table. And that woman was my mother, and she was tickled pink. There were many more accolades for Mom along the way, but at the end of the day, all of her work was not about the accolades, not about the plaques. It was about doing things for her family and her community of Waterbury, of which she said often she was 5 generations, which meant the world to her. And yes, it is true that she said to a new vendor who called her, she referred to him, as I recall, as a young whippersnapper. I told that whippersnapper that if he wanted my business, he had to join the chamber and come give to the United Way. And I do believe he did, and I do believe he still does. She passed away, though, like she lived her life, surrounded by what matters. It was the privilege of my lifetime to actually live in the hospice room with her this week, 5 years ago. Her days were filled with family and friends, including friends of Eileen and mine from high school that we hadn't seen in years, visiting with her, as well as the Franciscan sisters in Meriden coming and singing hymns to her throughout the day. Even the family dogs came to visit, PJ King and Chrissy, and sat on her lap, and my goodness. But although she was unconscious, she had a much-deserved rest at that point, and she had the most peaceful smile on her face. I'm sure we all have had a Jaci story here and there that has brought a smile to our face, and we can share them as we celebrate our good times. I know the people at this table have many. But my mother was the most unique human being I've ever met on the face of the earth, and had tremendous adversity in her life, never let it get the best of her, never complained, as they say, the expression, don't complain, don't, what's the rest of that? Explain, don't explain. Just work. Don't feel sorry for yourself, just work. Just pick yourself up by your pantyhose or your bootstraps and just work. That's all she ever said. Somebody came into the office one day and said, well, ma'am, I'm not taking that job. I would have to take 2 buses to get there. And she said, well, listen, you whippersnapper, I took 2 buses to take a job at Timex when my kids were young, so don't tell me. I wasn't bored on this side of the desk. And that's how she lived her life. She cared deeply, she loved deeply, she loved this community deeply, and most of all, she loved the United Way. I know that she's up there right now smiling down, and I guarantee you, St. Peter heard that she raised $1 million for the Immaculate. I guarantee you she's on some capital campaign to raise money and renovate the pearly gates. So here's to you, Jackie. I miss you, Mom.
Thank you.